Hey everyone, and welcome back to our SwiftUI series. Today we're going to be exploring forms in SwiftUI. We're going to learn how to build and manage user input with different form elements like a text field, toggle, slider, and picker. So let's go ahead and dive on in. I'm going to start from scratch with a new project, but if you want to add this to an existing project, feel free to do so. So I'm just going to call this form example SwiftUI here. Interface SwiftUI language Swift, and we should be good to go. All right, so let's go ahead and add some content to our content view here. And I'm going to add a couple of different state variables here. So first one, we're going to have state private var. If you wanted to have these save, you could also save these under app storage as well. Totally up to you. I'm just going to use this for now. We'll create a username and we'll have it be a string equal an empty string just as default. We'll create another state here. We'll do notifications enabled perhaps. So private var notifications enabled. This will be a Boolean value. So we'll say bool, and then we'll have it equals false for now, just as default. We'll also do volume, and maybe we'll do like a selected theme. So at state private var volume, maybe we'll have this be a double, and we'll have this maybe equal 50.0. Maybe we'll have this be like 50% to start. Then we'll do our last state here, our selected theme. So say private var selected theme, and we'll have this be a string. And again, we can just have this as a default value, and maybe we'll have the light mode as our initial theme. Maybe we'll do like light, dark, and then system. Let's actually go ahead and create those right now. So let themes equals, and we'll create an array. We could have light, separate with a comma, dark, and then maybe system. Or if there's like a funky color you'd like to use there, totally up to you. All right, in our body here, we're actually not going to be using this VStack, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete that here, and we're going to create a navigation view. And then we're also going to create a form. So we're just going to type out form. So in a form, we can add different sections. So let's go ahead and preview and see what these kind of look like. So if you want to go ahead and type out section, then you can fill it with a title and any content. So we'll say header, text, then we can say profile settings maybe. And this is where our profile settings will go here. All right, and we do also need to wrap this within a brace here. So I'm just gonna make some space and just move my comment back here. All right, and let's make another section. And we'll have a header for this one as well, and we'll say text, and perhaps preferences. And we'll create a brace here as well, and we'll say, preferences will go here. Wonderful. All right, let's also add a title to our navigation view. So we're going to make sure that we're inside of it here, and we'll do .navigation title, and we can just call this maybe settings, just so the users know kind of where they're at. But here we've created this very basic form layout. We have our profile settings and our preferences, and we also added those state variables in order to capture the user input values. All right, so now let's add those individual input controls in each section. We're going to start off with the text field for the username. So let's go to our profile settings here, and we can add a text field by typing out text field with a capital T and F. Here's where we can place the kind of placeholder text. So in this case, it might be username. And then we can add a comma, and then we can actually link this text here to be our binding. So we're going to add $username. We can also add some different styles here. So maybe if we want to change the text field style, we can have it be a rounded border text field style. You can kind of see that we have that round border. I'll kind of try my best to zoom in here. We kind of have that round border on the text style. If we were to comment this off real quick, you'll see that it kind of doesn't really have that text background. This current section of white here is actually just like the normal background as is. You can of course also change things like the font. So if you want it to be like, body, or even a custom font that you do have for the user, any settings you can include there as well. All right, next we're going to add a toggle in the preferences section down here, which is going to let users turn maybe notifications on or off. So to do this, we can just create a toggle. We could also give it a little bit of text next to it. So we can say enable notifications perhaps. Then we can add a comma and we could say is on. We'll put our binding. Oh, I called this notifications. Classic spelling mistake. Okay, notifications enabled. So I'm just going to go back down here, finding notifications enabled, not notifications. I don't know what a notification is. So essentially we have our is on value, which is going to be linked to that notifications being true or false. So this toggle lets users turn them on or off. We bind it to notification enabled, so the apps will always reflect the latest selection. Let's also go ahead and add the volume control with our slider. So underneath our toggle here, we're going to add a slider by just simply typing out slider. And this is where we're going to be adding a value. So we're going to type value, and we can reference our binding of volume. So I'm going to put $volume, assuming I spelled volume correctly this time. And here we'll add a comma, and we can add a range. And we can say in, colon. Then we can say, I think we had it set to 50. Yeah, I can see at the top there. So we can do 0, ... 100 in order to have a range of 0 to 100. Then we can add a comma, and we can say step. And then we can add a value of basically, every time that this slider changes, we can kind of set this step to be the amount that it changes. So if this is 1, every kind of movement here, a big or small, is going to increase it by 1. If you have a really large number, make sure that this step reflects that. So if you're going from like 1 to 1000, you might want to have this be 10 or 100 every single time. If you have a really small number, make sure that your step kind of reflects what it looks like. We can even display the current volume. So let's go ahead and add some text here to let the users know what it is. We can say that's volume. And maybe we can also even display their current volume here. So we'll say text current volume. And we can do some interpolation here. Because it is a double, if we were just to go ahead and say like volume here, you'll notice that we have this huge decimal number, right? And as we kind of move things along, it's only going to change by 1. So if we were to change this from step to be maybe 0.5, you're going to see when we do move, you can see the decimal value will also change. So I would really suggest kind of keeping this to something that's a little easy to use. Also, because we don't want to have these billions of decimals showing to the user, we can actually display this to them in an integer value. So we're going to add int here, and we're going to wrap that in some brackets, like so. So it'd be bracket int volume, and then closing out on our brackets. So it's going to take that double, and it's going to just display it as a whole number, so it's a lot easier for the users to kind of see and use. Let's also add a theme picker here. So let's go ahead and say picker, select theme. All right, and let's say that the selection is tied to that binding. So we're going to put $, and I think it was selected theme. Let's go ahead and add a brace and add some space. We'll say for each themes, comma, ID, colon, / dot self. Go ahead and say brace theme in. All right, and then we could say text. We'll reference the theme here. So this is going to basically take all of our themes within our array, and it's going to display them in kind of that order there. So now if we click on here, we can see that we have this little option here that allows us to select light, dark, or system. We don't have any functions behind them right now, but this essentially allows you to have the user select out of that array, and that choice will be saved. If we want to change the theme of our picker, we'll need to go to the end brace of that. So outside of our picker brace here, so 2 below, we can do dot picker style. If you want to actually just autofill this in really quick, it'll actually give you a whole bunch of different picker styles that you can choose from. I'm going to do the segmented picker style here. And it's kind of like your segmented controls where you can kind of choose whichever option you want, and kind of like almost like a tab bar, and kind of just swap between all of them. All right, so to make our form a little bit more interactive, and this might be even something that you want to put on a different view, but let's go ahead and create another section here, which is actually going to represent our preview. So let's make sure we're outside of the other segment here. So under our picker style, there's a brace, and we should be good to go here to create one more section. Let's go ahead and give it a header. We'll say, text, preview. Let's add our brace here, and we'll add a whole bunch of text, and we'll just interpolate all of our data here. So we'll say username, colon, right? And then we'll interpolate username. Let's do the exact same thing for all these things. We already kind of interpolate our volume, but we'll also probably just include it here. Notifications, then we can interpolate notifications enabled. Because this is a Boolean statement, we can also do that ternary operator here. So let's go ahead and put question mark on, else. So essentially we're creating like a very short if-else statement, right? So if is on, display on, else, I'm literally typing out else, sorry, thinking out loud, a colon for that else statement, and then we'll say off. Sorry about that if that was confusing. But essentially we're using that ternary operator to check if that notification is enabled. If it is, we'll say on, else it will say off. Wonderful. Sometimes my brain's like thinking about how that ternary operator works, and it's going to type up all those things. Let's also do our volume. I mean, we can work smarter, not harder here, definitely. And let's go ahead and grab what we created earlier. It's going to display that current volume. And let's go ahead and also have our theme. And this will just be our selected theme. All right, we can kind of test our app here. We can see when we enable notifications, when we change the volume, it does reflect. We put it on the dark theme. We change our username to maybe, I don't know, what's a good name, like Arthas, Lich King. Oh my goodness, autocorrect is hilarious. Art has the Koch King. It's supposed to be Arthas the Lich King. Any World of Warcraft enjoyers out there? Maybe I'll just do Barkley. Charles Barkley. We can kind of see, any change that we make is reflected there in our form. Let's go ahead and also run this in our simulator. All right, we can see that our settings shows up as expected on our simulator, very similar to our preview here. Let's set the name to be Bob the Builder. Right, we can see that it updates down here. No matter what we do, it does reflect that. Same with our toggling on or off of notifications. Our volume displays as requested. And as we kind of change the theme, it does kind of show up there. So this is a very, very simple way of creating a form. What you could also do is maybe, instead of this preview, you can have like a save button if you want to save these things to app storage so they're usable throughout your app. Totally up to you, but I just kind of want to show you how to create these forms for these users to use. Also feel free to experiment around with the different styles and designs, right? For example, in our text field here, we did the round border text field. You can do things like plain style, right? So this would be plain style text field. We also do a secure field. So instead of text fields, so if you're doing things like passwords, you can actually put secure fields. So in this case, let's do password. And let's refresh our preview here. And now when we type it in our password, you'll notice that anything we type is kind of hidden. Unfortunately, in our preview, it does show. So if you are referencing that elsewhere, like in this case where our preview is referencing that username, you might want to have it not be shown there. That's not my actual password, okay? I'm just hitting random keys. If you wanted to do a multi-line text field, you'd actually want to use a text editor instead. The only thing is you can't have a placeholder here. So you would just have your text. This is good for if you're creating things like a notes section or journaling, things like that. If you want to adjust the frame, you would just put dot frame. And then you could have, like, for example, the height, right? And set that to be a certain value. So that'll make it a lot thicker. Totally up to you. And for the kind of option picker down here, we went with this segmented picker style. But some cool ones to play around with would be perhaps the wheel picker style, which is quite fun. So you can kind of see we have this wheel that we can zoom up and down with. If you have a lot of elements, you can kind of like let it ride like the Wheel of Fortune there. You can also do the menu picker, which is nice and compact here. So menu picker style, just like how we kind of had before as well. And that's it. Today we learned how to build a form in SwiftUI, capturing that input with like the text field, the toggle, the slider, and picker, as well as kind of played around with those other extra elements like the secure view for password and text editor for those maybe larger chunks of text. And we got to see those preview changes in real time. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please like and subscribe for more SwiftUI content. Until next time, dream big and code bigger. Take care, everyone.